Okay, so hey, Yanis, this one here is Wes, which is from this morning, and this one makes me think that I think there might actually be two stories in here. I'm really going to go back and compare all of the ones that we've got where they've joined multiple courses just to see is it one story or two. But in this case here, I've put in this, so he's moved from using a designer and he's moved to PJ Milani's course first. Now, he calls himself an independent consultant who helps other independent consultants. And it's all about finding their niche and helping them turning their expertise into these intellectual headshots, which is this concept he's come up with. And around 3 years ago, he started this business, and he actually had this like really big, much larger service offering at the time. And some people were taking it up, but maybe he felt it was kind of too big, it was too chunky, it wasn't selling as well as he might like. But in February 2025, he got invited to present in some sort of like networking event or whatever it was. I'm going to dig back through, and they said, "Oh, can you present this thing on intellectual headshots?" which he chaired in his newsletter. And so he gets up on stage, shares it, and suddenly gets this flood of inbound requests. And so he wasn't offering it as a service, but he's turned it into a service and decided this is going to be like a pilot sprint by April 2025. Now, beforehand, when he first started the business, he comes from a consulting background. He can come up with visual ideas, because he used to have to put this stuff down on slides. But in a consulting shop, they always had somebody there who could polish this stuff up. And sure enough, when he started the business, he had a designer to help with this as well. And she was doing a good job, but it's costing money. It's eating into his profits. And once this became the whole service, I think that's when the big shift happened. All of a sudden, I can't go on relying on this other person. This is, the whole part of my business. I've got these people coming to me for intellectual headshots, which are visuals, but I'm not a designer. So I've got this caveat in my contract that tells them, hey, you can get the ideas from me, but you've got to go and pay somebody else to polish them up. You can't use these things as they are. And so that's kind of the interesting part. Now, what happened here is in July, he sort of had a let up in his workload. He'd been following PJ Milani since about February, I think, probably coinciding with this. He was trying to get the ideas, trying to learn how to do this, trying to learn the process. But also in this, actually I should probably add a bit more to the setup here. What he says below is that, hang on, let's type it in. I have a client where I've created 5 ideas for 2 of which I'm happy with a plus, let's have a look at the plus, and 3 are C, and I have imposter syndrome, which I think you mentioned before as well. So this kind of feeling that now I'm doing this, like I'm not a designer, but my business is selling design. Like, what's going on? I need to I need to up my game. I've got to gain these skills. I've got to do what I need to do. We'll skip through the bit on yours for now. So if I have a look at this, so I've relied on a graphic designer to do the work before, realised I'd be better off if I could do it myself. Better at thinking of the idea and writing it down than I am at art. I know that, again, lots of these people, almost everybody has either known for years that visuals are better for communication, or they've seen a visual and gone, wow, this is like, boom, it's lit an idea up in my head. I want the ability to do it to others. So interesting. I wonder whether we need so much copy to tell people how impactful they are. I think you're kind of preaching to the choir there. He's another one. I've got the ideas and he can visualize them. So even though he says he sketches a lot, he still feels like he's handcuffed to get them down on paper. But when I see somebody else, I'm seeing PJ, I'm seeing Roberto, they're pushing a high volume of content, but it's also high quality. And I can't do that. I can't keep up. So I don't have a process. In this case, work has slowed down. It's not related to that process. It's just, maybe I've got a lull period. And I've seen it from the courses that we sell, June, July, August. there's the summer holidays, lots of parents are off, things like that, projects wind down, and therefore people have more time for personal development. You have a look at your own sales, see whether you see an uptick in sort of December, January, and the summer months. This is that bit. So I've some are A+, some are not. And then it leads to all these thoughts. Am I winging it? I'm an untried designer selling design. I'm seeing somebody else who creates stuff that it gets the point across. And so it's kind of, I don't want to run out of ideas. I can't afford to. I'm selling this stuff now. Tools I'm using aren't right. Help me upskill. And so in this case, I can step up. He doesn't want to be a designer. He just needs to be better than he is today, and good enough to do it for his clients. I don't have to lose margin in this case. Get skill and confidence to do this. Join a course before discount ends. Fit this into my work schedule. Learn something fun and useful. I can join a live class. In this case here, I can do it because in the summer PJ teaches during the workday. I want to do it in the workday. I want to elevate this stuff to a standard I'm proud of, and have the confidence really to do this. Do this for a living. Not many anxieties. Can I fit this in? Can I do it when I've got the time to do it? I could create my own, or I could rely on a designer. There's a lot of parallels here to the very first interview with Kieran, just slightly different. This is about a work usage of it. When I can fit this into my schedule, when it makes sense, when there's time for me to learn, I'm going to get involved. I'm going to learn that. And so therefore that one's that's one. Yours, I do think in this case we'll have to put it in as a separate one. And he learned about yours through that course. So in this case, I'm pulled in by the laid-back style. You've got quite a kind of relaxed approach as you talk and share ideas, and this pulls him in. I'm actually learning from this. And if we go back to Kieran's interview, it'd be interesting. But I'm learning from somebody who does this for others. So I want to sell my designs to people who want designs. Well, that's what Yanis does. PJ teaches people how to come up with visual ideas. Yanis sells his visual ideas to others. So going back to that Kieran story, I want to be a graphic designer or whatever. People with aspiration to do that, I think, are going to want to learn from you. And this may be where we have a separate landing page, because it's going to talk to to people about, even if it's the same set of skills, it could be the same underlying course. It doesn't really matter. We want to talk to the progress they're trying to make. The real-time stuff, we've seen that in Alex. We've seen that in at least one other. I think I'm trying to remember who. But the way that you're able to generate an image in real time, so how getting the idea out, it's I suspect it might be more powerful for the people where they feel the idea is locked in their head. So it's a bit like some people, I feel like I'm crap at art, but look, it's simple. Yanis is just doing basic visuals. I don't need to be an artist. I'll be pulled over to learn that. If I feel like ideas are locked in my head and I can see somebody else who's just able to pour them out and express them freely and turn it into something in real time, maybe that lures me in there. So I want to see whether that's a thread that's worth pulling. And this was, again, somebody else telling him you should do this in real time. I think Alex had seen somebody do it in real time, and he's like, wow, that's aspirational. I wish I could do that type thing. In this case, low price for it, trying to get in a discount before it expired. He felt like he was buying more of a community with you. And again, and I think this is going back, so we'll have to have a look at this one-on-one sessions that we're doing. I have to see, why do people join up? I wish I could tell you why I joined, but at least we got a few of those next week. The big anxiety that stops people from it, I think they'd like to have the sessions. They want the feedback. They absolutely want somebody to critique their ideas, give them constructive criticism. But can I fill up a whole hour? Like, what am I going to get that's in addition to the Loom feedback that's there? And that's preventing people from joining that higher priced cohort. So it'd be really interesting to see what the one or two people who have paid for it, what did they want to do with that hour, or why did that not matter to them? Because I think that's going to be really instrumental in us understanding this. But so I'm parking this here for now, just so I can copy and paste it out somewhere else later. and then I'll have a think about it. But I think we may have even more stories than we set out to get because we've got multiple stories. And I think what's interesting is I remember when we first did the setup call, I said at the time, interviewing someone who's bought one course and then another, it would be interesting because, to an external person, somebody completely ignorant to this, like maybe I am, you might think, well, it's crazy. Why on all earth would you waste your money to buy 2 courses when, when you've already got one? Haven't you already learned what you need to learn? And in these interviews where we've seen multiple different courses purchased, the Bob who taught me this is the irrational becomes rational with context. So immediately it's like, well, that's crazy. Why would you buy 2 courses? Now you can suddenly see it's, well, actually I've learned enough. I've learned a process from one. I want to add the tools in my tool belt from another. There's a slightly different way of looking at things. There's a slightly different style. Somebody's doing it in real time. Someone's doing simple. Someone's doing metaphors. This is about building a skill and developing and giving me the confidence that I can do this in a paid environment. And that's why this one's more similar to Kieran and possibly some of the others, that I'm going to try and do this for a living, not I'm going to try and do this for fun, and it might also help my job. So hopefully you're seeing this. Once we analyse it, I'm sure we'll see, it'll be like a rock's hit me on the head and I'll suddenly see something even more important once we get the clusters formed. But I think this is really great intel, and it's certainly helping me shape up the ideas on your pricing and not just pricing, but product. Is this one-on-one thing the right product to be offering as your high price, high tier piece? Or should we disassemble it and turn it into something else that better matches the demand in the market, so that you're still delivering, the same type of service, but you're doing it in a more engaging way or a more exciting way that gets more people to say, yes, I'll pay top dollar, because nobody in this group, nobody seems to be overly bothered. I think Nikki was the one who said that it was expensive. She thought it was worth the money, but it was just a lot of money to her. Others who've got maybe more disposable cash, or they're taking it out of a business that's already got revenues, they don't care about the price. It certainly doesn't seem to be about money. So therefore, let's look at that and see if there's an opportunity to make more money just by changing what you sell at which price point. Anyway, talked for too much. I'll shut up. Cheers. Okay, so here is the second debrief that I've done here for Wes's interview. And in this case, I'm not so certain that we do have 2 different stories here. We've got 2 different price points and price sensitivities. But if we have a look down, there's a few nuances, but I think the overall arc of the story is the same, whereas Frederick's was definitely 2 separate pieces here. And so, the preamble here, I'm not going to go through that again because it's exactly the same. I've moved this piece here through into this one here. So, what was it about Yanis? Well, number one, he learnt about him through PJ's course. But as I think about this, I'm wondering, when we look at this, there's definitely, I learn about a creator either through seeing their work or through seeing them referenced by another creator out there. I respect their work. I want the ability to do it. It creates a sort of, if only I could do that pull in their mind. But I'm not sure whether it matters where somebody learns about it. Does it matter that they find you on Instagram or on LinkedIn or wherever? Or is it just okay to be referenced, even just saying, well, hey, I learnt this from Yanis? The vibe that Yanis gives off is important. But the more I look into this, there's some part of this where it's, okay, yeah, sure, he's a cool guy, this guy's going to be fun to learn from. But actually, when you look at it, it's about the fact that he can open up, and if you go and take Yanis's course, you'll see he opens up Figma, he takes an idea, and he starts just kind of throwing it around, playing around with the idea, shaping it out, and doing that in real time. And there's something about that which pulls people in. And I think it's related to the fact that they want the process, the thought process behind it. If I'm sat there and I'm going to try and create visuals that I sell, I'm petrified. I've got this imposter syndrome. I'm petrified that my well is going to dry up, and therefore I won't be able to sell anything. If I can't create your visuals for you, come up with the ideas, you're not going to pay anything. And so as a result, then I see somebody else who has this effortless style. It's laid back, it's relaxed. He's not all wound up. He doesn't feel like he's got imposter syndrome. Although actually, when you talk to Yanis, he did. I think he's mentioned that he's always had that before. I think he says it in our screener. But you know, somebody with imposter syndrome wants to work with someone who's got the confidence and the laid back vibe. So there's some pull there. But again, is that different to the reason he's joined PJ's course? I still want the confidence to do this. I still want to see the process that somebody else is using, and I still want a repeatable way to make sure that if I am stuck in a rut and I do find myself with a dry well, that I have a process to follow that will get me unstuck. And you know, obviously, some part of this is, well, I'm charging people for my visuals. You know, Yanis is charging for this, so I want to learn from him. So, you know, anyway, these things haven't changed, but it's just making me think. When I went through Frederick's, I was very convinced that I'd got two separate stories, whereas when I go through this, I think I've got two different stories in the same vein. And you can see this because I've copy and pasted a bunch of the pushes and pulls across. So, you know, none of this stuff changes between the different stories. I've put in imposter syndrome here, but there was some other comment that he'd made with PJ's course himself. So, you know, I don't think that's different. They probably land in the same, whatever it's going to be called. But imposter syndrome, or when you know, I've created something, I've got 2 A pluses and 3 that are C, or whatever this one says here. Those probably land in a similar kind of, you know, when I'm worried that I won't, you know, I can't continue this streak or something like that, or that I'm going to run out of ideas. And again, you know, this is sort of latching on to, hey, that's what I do, and he's doing this. The pulls, I think we kept quite a lot exactly the same. So, you know, again, I'm now doing this for a living, or I want to do this for a living. Therefore, I need to own this. I need these skills. I want to be able to do this. You know, again, I want to get in before there's a discount. I think it's important, but you know, whatever. We'll see how that plays out. But nothing changes. It's still a fun, useful thing. In this case, we've got some more about the community aspect. So I don't know. That may pull him into a separate story. I'm not entirely sure until we run the full analysis. But you know, there's some of the other stuff. There's probably more similar than there is different, and therefore that's why I don't think I've got two stories. I think I've got two versions of the same story. It's just somebody who evolves. I've learned this from one course where I wanted to do it live. I wanted to see it in person. Now, hey, look, there's an opportunity to go and learn it from a different creator. I don't need the live stuff. You know, maybe I've had that already. But you know, that's part of the trade-offs that they're making. And it may just sort of split those groups. Maybe they buy for the same reasons, but the decision on what they buy and the trade-offs they make are a function of, have I already taken a course where there's live training or not in the past. And you know, I want to learn behind the scenes, but it's really the thought process, the thinking, the ability to do this. That's what I'm trying to do. The tools, I don't think I had that in the first one for Wes, but you know, he's getting in there. He wants to learn how to use these tools. Quite a few people seem to want that. You know, they're used to using Canva or something similar, and now this is an opportunity to step up. What changes here are the habits, because obviously now it's PJ's course rather than a specific designer, but you know, that's still in there. And then the anxieties change, but actually the way that we will do this clustering is all based on the pushes and pulls. So we're looking at the situation somebody's in over here, the pushes, and we'll try and latch on and put those together. And then we'll look at the outcome that they're looking for, the pulls, and we'll merge people together into groups who have similar contexts and similar desired outcomes. And then we'll have a look and see within that. And we might find that things like the discount, yeah, that could just be you know, a bit of a red herring or whatever. You know, if these courses are and the courses are almost always discounted by the sounds of things. Everybody who's talked about these say that there's a discount. If that's the case, and it's always in there, we might want to rip that out, because it's not, you know, it's not changing anything. It's not really, they're not learning something from the discount. It's just like, hey, I'll act, you know, I'm going to do this now because, you know, someone's got a buy it now symbol, and you know, maybe this is why what's the name of the thing? Udemy has endless sales on, because if there's a sale, it will get people, as they enter into a context, they'll latch onto it and they'll buy it because they think they're getting a good price. So anyway, interesting one. Again, I thought afterwards, well, this might be telling me that there's 2 stories. For Fredericks, I'm pretty convinced we got 2. For Wes, I think we've probably got 1 in 2 slightly different flavours. But again, we'll push this through the process and we will let the algorithm tell us what's right and what's wrong, and then we will be able to pick up the pieces and try and make some business decisions based on that. Hopefully this deeper thinking of the problem has helped, and enjoy following along. Cheers.